My wife was 36, and I was 37 when she was informed of an upcoming high school reunion. We arranged for a babysitter for that night and immediately started. Looking forward to it, I wouldn't know anyone, but it was really exciting for me to get to meet her old friends. I met my wife one fateful night in a bar that was on the same street we worked on. She worked as a hairdresser, and I worked in a print shop. The first thing I noticed was how beautiful her hair was. Then I saw her eyes, and I knew she was going to be a fascination of mine for an unimaginable length of time. The first thing she said to me was that I needed a haircut, but I'm getting off topic. We were married and welcomed 2 kids into the world. Our marriage wasn't perfect, and there were a few times we considered taking time apart, but as soon as it came time to pack a bag, neither of us could do it. There wasn't any infidelity at this point, so it felt like any disagreement or issue could be resolved and worked through. That's how marriage is supposed to work, isn't it? Our kids had a good childhood and never had to hear loud arguments. They were 14 and 17 when we started planning to attend her high school reunion. 2 weeks before the reunion, my wife added many high school friends to her Facebook. More than one of these were men, but most of them were married as well. I had no suspicions of anything until I heard the dings start multiple times. Throughout the time we were home from work together, I heard her phone ding. I started thinking I heard it when I was in the shower or on the toilet. I heard it while she was cooking, and as we said good night to our kids, it was getting obviously excessive, and she knew it. I finally asked her who was messaging her so often, and of course she said it was high school friends talking about the reunion. Fair enough. She put her phone on vibrate, so it seemed like the messages suddenly stopped after she fell asleep. One night I heard her phone vibrate. I stared at the ceiling for 40 minutes before I heard it again and gave in. What I read was unnerving. It was a string of messages between her and a man that would be at the high school reunion. In one of the messages she mentioned how wonderful and exciting it will be to see him again. In another, she asked if any fun he'd had over the years compared to what they did when they were young. He replied that no, he was only able to have that level of fun with her. She responded to that by saying that perhaps they'd have fun at the reunion or sometime after that. He pointed out that this sounded like she'd want to keep seeing him after the reunion, and she didn't deny it. Well, I confronted her about it, and she apologized profusely. She said he seemed lonely and like he needed friends. I told her this was no excuse to be talking to him about having fun or continuing to see each other after the reunion. I also asked if they'd been intimate in the past, and she said no, she didn't appear to be lying, but knowing what I know now, I'd say she most definitely was. She asked me if we could still go to the reunion, and I said yes, figuring she hadn't really broken my trust at this point and I'd be there to watch everything. Little did I know she continued talking to that man, maybe even more than before. She had her hair and nails done before the night out. During the night in question, it took the man a few minutes to get up the nerve to reintroduce himself to my wife while I stood beside her. I hated the feeling he gave me. He could barely look at me, and I could see how desperate he was to connect with my wife. She looked at him similarly, but with more care about me. She introduced me kindly, but that didn't faze this man. He sat close enough to maintain conversation with her, and throughout the night everyone drank except me. My wife was visibly intoxicated by the time I had to go to the bathroom. I told her I'd be right back. When I came back out, she was gone, and so was he. I looked around and asked one of the women from the reunion where they went. She said they stepped outside for a cigarette. My wife didn't smoke, but I thought maybe she just stepped outside to keep him company. When I went outside, I didn't see them anywhere. I checked the inside of all the cars in the parking lot. I tried calling her cell phone and she didn't answer. I was stumped and angry. I waited 50 minutes before finally getting a text from her. It read that she'd agreed to go with the man to the gas station down the road, but since they were close to her house, he was planning to drop her off there. I knew this was I arrived home 15 minutes later to find that the babysitter had left and our kids were asleep. My wife was asleep on the couch wearing only her panties. I woke her up immediately and demanded an explanation. She was so out of it, but honestly a part of me believed she was faking it. In her incomprehensible way, she tried to say that he gave her a ride home because he wanted to talk about stuff he was going through, trying to get more out of her. While she was like, this was impossible. So I waited until the morning before she woke up. Our teenagers told me about the night they had with the babysitter. I could hardly pay attention, but it was good to know they were asleep when she arrived home and didn't see anything odd. As soon as my wife got up, I asked her about what happened. She complained that her memory was shot and said she felt really bad for leaving me there and really bad for getting so drunk. Well, a few hours later she broke down and told me she just remembered what really happened. I think she just knew I was going to find out somehow. She told me he asked her to come outside with him and talk, and she agreed. He invited her into his car because it was cold and she didn't see the harm in that. Then she said he forced her to kiss and have sex with him. She was crying, but I swore it was because she was caught. I told her to let me check her phone and she tried to refuse and make excuses. I grabbed it from her and locked myself in the bathroom. Lo and behold, she had time to text the man and say what they did was a mistake. But before that, days before the reunion, messages proved a plan to sneak away at some point, have sex, and even considered the possibility of her spending the night at his house. This was it. Our marriage was over when I opened the bathroom door. She was ghostly white and staring at me as if her life depended on it. I told her we were done, that I wouldn't be able to be with her again, knowing she planned and went through with cheating on me. She sobbed and almost inaudibly pleaded for my forgiveness. I told her that although she was drunk when it happened, she planned this out beforehand. She decided to give herself away even though she was faithfully mine for all these years. I lost all motivation to protect her as my wife because she chose to invite another man in. I didn't think she could feel any worse, but she did after I said that. She curled up in a ball, crying her heart out while I did her a few favors. I arranged for the kids to have a sleepover at their friend's house so that they may not be as traumatized later in life. I packed as much of my wife's clothes and belongings as possible. I called her parents and informed them of what was happening, suggesting they come pick up their Daughter they did since she refused or was unable to get in their car. I put her in, followed by her stuff. Her parents tried to apologize to me and talk about it, but I didn't acknowledge them beyond hello and goodbye. My wife tried more than once to get out of the car, but they warned her that if she didn't come with them now, they wouldn't allow her to stay with them until she found somewhere else to go. Hearing that sent her into a trance. She knew her life as she knew it was over. She sat still like a statue as they drove her away through the divorce and custody hearings. She was crying as silently as possible. Our teens chose to live with me, continuing to live in the same house and attend the same school. Their mom had the decency to admit her wrongdoing and go with me to the best of her ability. Since years have passed, I'm able to basically be friends with her. I'm thankful to myself every day that I didn't stay with her and try to work it out. It would have been so much worse for me. Better for her. She chose this path, and I went willingly. She hated it every step of the way, but maybe she deserved that. She's still living with her parents, even though she's moved out more than once since all this happened. I guess she's had trouble finding happiness after her family life ended. I were married 1 year ago, and she's a wonderful, faithful woman so far. I wanted to share my story so that others going through some horrible life-altering reality will maintain hope. Sharing your story will certainly spread hope that anyone can find a future for themselves beyond what they've known. Unfamiliar doesn't have to be intimidating. We're only human after all, and wouldn't have to face anything we aren't strong enough for. That being said, thank you friends for listening to my stories. I look forward to hearing what you think in the comments. I would be glad for any hints on what stories you like best. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. Have a nice day.